Welcome, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. We don't have a lot of time today. We're going to keep this fairly quick, but we're going to have a lot of fun. So I'm Nancy Hillis. I am an artist, founder of the Artist Journey Masterclass and courses and workshops, and best-selling author of 3 books, and a 4th book is coming. I'll show you the books. The Artist Journey. You may have some of these, or maybe you don't. This is the very first book. And then we have the Artist Journey Creativity Reflection Journal, which is lots of fun, where you can work through the inner part and then the adjacent possible. This is an author's copy that was published a year ago, and we got another one coming. So lots of fun. And if you haven't had a chance, you might want to get a copy of those books. But today, we're going to get going with, we're calling this Know to Flow. We've done this before, but today we're just going to focus on the beginning of that here. The very important piece of starting. Really, as an artist, you're continually facing yourself. And as you know, you're called to do something. You're called to create a painting. You're called to say yes to being an artist. But the problem is resistance. The problem is fear. Okay. The problem is we turn our face away. And so we want to get past that initial no to yes, so that ultimately we can get into flow. So that's why we call it from no to flow. And a huge piece of this is beginning, is starting, is plunging in. And no matter where you are on this journey, you may have been doing this for years. This could come up. You could be painting for 30 years. It can be hard sometimes to start. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to get into it. So one of the things that I've found so powerful, and I know Lorraine totally gets this, we've talked about it for years, is this concept from mathematics called 0 to 1. And this was mind-blowing to me as an artist, because sometimes I had trouble starting. Can you relate to that? And it's, you know, whether it's starting as an artist or starting to go swimming, you know, it's like just getting started sometimes can be really hard. And I submit to you that this is so important. And we know that the inner landscape is that overarching piece that informs starting, that informs experimentation, and ultimately evolving your art. Okay, but we want to today focus on that first part, that first action of starting. And so I really believe in this concept from 0 to 1. Bruce taught me this, that interestingly enough, from 0 to 1 is the biggest interval mathematically. This was mind-blowing to me. It's bigger than 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. It is enormous. And there's an infinity within 0 to 1. Okay, and this can be proven mathematically. And to me, that maps onto what happens to us as artists, that difficulty initiating sometimes. And so if we can work with that and realize the enormity of that possibility within 0 to 1, from nothing to something is bigger than something to something, something to something. Okay, so nothing to something, 0 to something is huge. And that's what we're doing today. Okay, we're starting. Because if you don't start, right, nothing happens, right? Obviously, it's all over. You got to start. Even if it means putting your toe in the water and just going into your studio and mixing paint. And then what you find is once you get past that initial resistance, it opens up. So today, what we're going to say is that not only is this enormous to start, it's massively freeing. And the thing that I love about starting is creating lots of starts, because we're opening up the possibilities, we're opening up the creative channels, and, you know, moving past that resistance. There's a tendency, I think, for us as artists to want to get to the finish really quickly or get to that masterpiece, right? But what we know is that the power is in the starts. because that's where something new can emerge if we'll allow that. And so a big piece of this too is allowing, no censoring, okay? And just getting in there and realizing the infinity of possibilities here. So there's lots of ways we can start. We could start with colors, okay? We could start with automatism, which was stream of consciousness mark making that came out of post-World War II, trying to get into the unconscious and get past the sensor and see what emerges. And we could do that. There's a million and more possibilities, actually an infinity of possibilities. Remember, 0 to 1. So I thought, given that we can't cover everything today, you see I've got a big piece of paper on my easel, and I'll tilt that down so you can see the whole thing. And I thought what we would do is just go ahead and get in there, because again, we don't have a lot of time today, but we're going to get in there and do something. And what we want to consider is that if we could begin to develop a practice of more starts, fewer finishes, lots of starts, miles of canvas, I like to say, we start to build this repertoire of possibilities. And we also build up that ability to move past the censor, the critic inside, and start to play and see what happens and get out of the way and see what comes through your gesture, just like they did with automatism. Okay. So, and one of the things we can do is like have lots of starts and then decide. Some of them will keep raw, some of them will go further into, and some of them will go even further into, and see how that feels. I have so many starts in here and hundreds. I'm sure that Lorraine relates to this. I've seen her studio. She's got hundreds, if not thousands over here. And you can have those and then go back into them. Would you agree with that, Lorraine?
Absolutely. And I think that, it's just good to have that stock, because there are days when, getting started, as you say, is the most difficult thing. Sometimes you can pick out a group of starts and actually something else completely emerges from it. So more starts, the better.
That's right. Yeah, we want to open up that possibility. Okay, we keep it open as long as you can and not crystallize too early. See, that's another thing. We tend to, again, in that race to the finish, in that trying to get to that masterpiece, we tend to close off possibilities and try to crystallize too early. And this is a problem in science as well. Okay, so we want to keep it open as long as possible. Because really, ultimately, as artists, we want to go into the unknown, into the mysterious. We want to take our art somewhere new. We want it to take us somewhere new. Ultimately, we want to start, experiment, and ultimately evolve our art continually. We don't want to get stuck in emulating not only others, but ourselves. And Bruce and I talk about that, success disasters, right? And we want to get past all of that. And so, but today we're focusing on starts. So let's get in there and let's do it. Okay. You see the big canvas. Bruce is going to come in. Do you want to come in and say hi for a moment, Bruce?
Sure.
Here he is.
Hi, everyone.
Dr. Bruce Sawhill. He's a physicist and theoretical physicist and mathematician, musician, and composer. And he joins us from time to time in here to talk about concepts from science and nature that can help us in our art. So thanks, Bruce. Bruce is going to do some B-roll here. That is, if any of you are filmmakers, you'll know what that is. Basically, he's going to come in from the side and take some film or some, video. So we have it just in case, because we believe in redundancy of systems like the brain. If one part shuts off, something else is going to work. So if for whatever reason, this didn't hold through with this, recording, we would have a backup. So here we go. All right. So, as I said, I'm going to bring this forward. There's a lot of ways of working with starts. There's an infinity of possibility of ways. Let me just say, for example, when you work on a palette, right? When you're mixing paint, that actually can end up, what's left on that paper can end up being a start. And Lorraine is nodding. The other day, I was just looking through, like, here was an example. I was working with the reds and magentas and a little bit of red orange. And I thought, wow, this is a start. I could go back into this, back and forth, back and forth. I could go in with marks, with chalk, with veiling, with all kinds of things, right? This is just one quick example. One day recently, I was exploring, this was another, like, I tend to work on pieces of paper for my palette, and I had some paint on here. So I thought, oh, let's explore continuous line. Okay, this is a start. Maybe I'll keep it raw like this. Maybe I'll go back into it. Okay, sometimes I'll live with these for weeks or months or years and they go back in, or not. Some of them stay always like that. Here's another one. I was working with inks and ended up having a lot of ink on here, and then went back in with chalk and just exploring and experimenting on this start. Okay, here's another one. I was working on a big piece on over here. Well, it's kind of tacked down. Let's see if I can pull this up so you can see it. This painting, pull it up. I was working on this painting with all these blues. I was very drawn to blue. That was a creative impulse. I was looking over at my studio and I saw these two colors and I was like, wow, let's explore continuous line and big gestural movements, exploring these blues. And I was thinking about Lake Tahoe. If any of you know Lake Tahoe, you know the color of the blues there. And it was a time when my daughter was in Mauritius and she was showing me pictures of that beautiful water there as well. So this is the piece of paper where I was moving paint to get onto that painting. And so now I'm going, you know what? This is a start. And I might just keep it like this, or I might move in. This was on watercolor paper. Okay. So you can work with color. Okay. You can work with color. Let me give you another example. This one, I end up working with. This one for years was this, I don't know if you can see it, but there were just these simple blue, big movements, continuous line back in here, back behind there. Okay. And it lived for 2 or 3 years because I was just like, I don't really know what I want to do with it, if anything. Then one day I went back in with these gray movements, blue gray, and some red orange, and and there was some black in there too. Okay. And it was like, I ended up loving this. But it began as that start. It began from a creative impulse, of I'm loving those colors. Here's another example. Okay. Working with inks. And it was just inks, various inks, and then going back in with some markers here. I think that's chalk as well. So you can see, and it might be very minimalist. Here's a real minimalist piece. Okay. Just a few moves. That one I'm going to leave as is. Keep it raw, keep it minimal on that one. Here's a few more, and then we're going to get into a little demo here. So here's one, just playing around with just a few colors, working with constraint, moving in with some mark making, and I ended up just loving that. Changing the palette. Okay. And even leaving the tape on there. These are, when you get into these starts, you're really also moving into experimentation too. And that's the key. Keeping it open, not crystallizing too early and moving in there. And allowing that kind of unfettered self-expression. This was basically another one of those palette sheets. Again, just laying out the palette on paper. And then afterwards, I thought, oh, I'm going to move some of that paint around. I just love those colors. And I just love this. And it really was just out of a start. Okay. And then here's one from years and years ago. And it's like, I love the mark making so much. And this one's going to live forever. Okay. So I just love that stream of consciousness mark making, and, and going from there. And what I found is that, what I do is I'll create starts, even big ones, and then just let it be on the easel, and then walk by it and just see, does anything speak to me? Is there a creative impulse to do something or not? Am I feeling it, or is it asking something of me? So that's kind of the way I think about these starts. So let's go ahead and start, shall we? All right. So I thought I'd just show you today, basically automatism, stream of consciousness mark making. This is, I love starting this way, but I don't always start this way. Sometimes I'll go in and just start with a color and big gestural movements with a big brush or something like that. Okay. But today, let's go ahead and look at this. So the way I like to start in there is with some pencils. I'm going to start with a little bit heavier pencil because it may be hard for you to see this. So I'll go ahead and start with a little bit darker pencil. And I'm just allowing, whatever that feeling is, this is stream of consciousness mark making. There's no censoring of this. It might be slow and very, it might, recede and come back in. Might get agitated somewhere or not. Just want to make sure you can see that. And a lot of times I'll start with something even thinner, but I'm afraid you're not going to be able to see it very well. So I might start with a super thin pencil, one of these really fine pencils. I can't even see what it is anymore, but anyway. And so, go in like that. Then I've got one of these, this one's called a pit oil base, soft, and it gives a bit different, it's a little bit darker. And this is really about, whatever it is, however you want to do this, right? This is allowing your body's gesture to come through. And however you are, it's going to be reflected. If you're agitated, it's going to show up on this paper, this canvas. If you're relaxed, if you're full of ease, that's going to show up. If you're feeling kind of lyrical, maybe you're listening to music, that will be reflected. We did this, didn't we, Lorraine? And in a workshop, we had 2 different pieces of music and it brought out different marks.
Yeah, the music was incredible. And watching everybody paint to it, just different pieces of music, marks came out of it that were just incredible. And I would advocate music. I know a lot of people, a lot of artists do work with music, but sometimes challenge yourself with different music so that, you see some different marks coming out when you start.
That's right. That is right. Let me move it in even closer. Is that up? Can you see everything?
Yep.
And, yeah, it's just, you get different aspects of yourself from these experiences. Then, you could go in if you want and erase some of it randomly or not, just play with that. And if you want, the other thing you can do, which can be fun, let me see if I've got this. Hold on just a second. Is you can go in with some glazing medium. You pour some of that on there. You don't have to do this, but if you want, it's kind of fun. And you can take a shaper like this. I like these Royal Sovereign shapers. And go in and kind of, it moves that around a bit. and kind of pulls a gray out of it, if you can see that. Can you see that, Lorraine, or do I need to bring it up closer?
No, you can see it on that first piece, Nancy. You can see how it intensifies the color and sort of blurs it, which again gives a different mark.
Yeah, it does, and it's kind of interesting. You know, here and there, I do some here and there, or not. Okay, but that can be fun. I love basically the satin glazing liquid from Golden. Use it all the time. I get big jars of it. I'd like to get even bigger gallons of it, actually. Okay, then, you can go on in again, with an even darker tool, like this is a graphite piece. I'm trying to think what it's called. Anyway, if I think of it, I'll tell you, but it gives like a different mark, and right. And later I might go in and seal that. And what I might do is, seal it with some of this gloss medium very gently, or very gently with that shaper, or even pour milk over it like Degas did. So, and then, there's different things, like sometimes I'll go in with these kind of graffiti markers. Let's see, here we go. It gives a really strong mark, as you can see. These graffiti markers. This is called Crank. I like these a lot. The Crank markers. And there's other ones too. Here's another Crank. Let's see what we got here. It's got a different, okay, it's thinner. I get a thinner mark there. Just playing around. There's no censoring going on here. Occasionally, I might go in with a Big Mama charcoal. This is called Generals. You can buy it. It's not easy to come by, though. I had a friend in Denmark, and I broke this in half because it was so big, and I sent her the other half. So, but it can be ordered. So it's real dark. Okay. I just want to show you that. All right. So the Big Mama charcoal. Just a second, I have to wash my hands because it gets on them. I should probably have my gloves on. And maybe I'll do that. Hold on just a second. Okay. And then what we're going to do is go in with some paint. So get this glove on. See what happens here. And I'm working large like this, but you can do these kind of starts in an art journal. You can work much smaller than this. You can work, as you saw, on more like watercolor size sheets of paper, on different art pads. It doesn't have to be a gigantic piece of paper. Okay. This piece of paper is Borden and Riley. It's inexpensive. It's like 90 pounds. I've got rolls and rolls of this. This is what I use in the live workshops. All right. So then I go in with I like these long brushes. Actually, that is black, Bruce. Bruce went out this morning and got me some latex paint at the hardware store, and it looked gray in the gallon here. Doesn't it look gray, Bruce, when you look at it there? Okay, now I'm just kind of moving along. He's going to get the camera on it so later you can see that. So this is real thin marks, these real super thin lines can lend themselves to a more lyrical feel. you know, if you're feeling lyrical, whatever. I mean, it's just changing things up. Okay. And then I might go in with a little bit thicker brush. Okay. Just varies. It just varies. Gives me different kind of mark. Okay. So I'm just playing around. I'm not sitting here analyzing this. This is the spontaneous. We talk about spontaneous and the considered. This is the spontaneous. Okay. I want to stay in that. I don't want to crystallize too early. I want to open it up, Okay. So I've got activation here, activation of the canvas, so to speak, activation of the paper. You know, it's no longer a blank piece of paper that can be terrifying or intimidating, right? And, you know, I could go in if I wanted to with the Big Mama brush, if you know me, you know, this is my favorite. Certainly Lorraine knows this. This is the Escoda. It used to be called a size 8. It's a sash brush. It's pretty big. Let's see how big it is in terms of the width of it is like, you know, at least 2 inches. It looks like more like 2.5. So just get an idea. If you get one of these, I think the numbers are different now than they used to be. So, but it has a fantastic weight. These are made in Spain. Fantastic feeling. When you work with it, it puts a lot of paint in there, and it takes a while later to wash this out. So, okay, I'm just kind of going, okay. And, you know, before I came on here, I thought, well, what if I put some color in this thing? And what if is a great question to ask yourself, because we're moving into experimentation, right? What if I do this? What if I do that? That's the creative impulse. So listen to that. So this morning, I'll show you this. I went in here and put down these colors, these 2 different blues. Do you see that? Can you see that? I've got them ready. And these 2 different blues that I love are manganese blue hue and cerulean blue chromium. I just saw these one day. I fell in love with them. I'm like, why not? And it's informed a lot of paintings, right? As you've seen. And I submit to you to like listen to those creative impulses like that. Notice what you love and go ahead. And also notice what you're allergic to and try that too. Okay, especially like if you hate the color green, Lorraine. Lorraine can speak to that.
Yeah, I hate green. I still don't like it, but I used it as a constraint for a whole series. And out of that series and that experimentation came a couple of pieces that sold immediately. So you just never know where it's going to take you.
You never know. So that's good too. Go into those places that scare you. Go into those places you're allergic to. Why not? Okay. But sometimes go into the places you love too. Okay. All right. So I thought, hey, I don't know. What if I took this brush and went into some of that color? That one. This is kind of wet, so I can't really hold that up for you. And just moved in, you know, with some movement with color in there. Why not? And it's mixing as I go in there. Then I've got this bluer one. That's that chromium blue, I think. Yeah. And let's go in there with some movement too. Yeah, and just not, you know, not knowing where this is going to go, but just going with the impulse. Okay. All right. And let me put this away. Let's see, I got one more thing here. I was looking for that tool that I have, that I thought I'd show you one more thing. Give me a second. What are the tools? Well, anyway, So you could take a different kind of tool and play with movement. Let it drip, see what happens. And then get out. And we let that be, okay? So we brought color in on this one. Sometimes I'll just stay black and white. I love black and white, but I also love color. But it's powerful to have like a dark value in there. You know, there's this saying that value is the workhorse, but color gets the glory. And value is really, really powerful thing that we get into in the masterclass. So this is just an example of starting to move in and allow and cultivate a sense of allowing in your art. So let's start to see what's going on here. Lorraine, any thoughts in all of this?
Yeah, I think you know, it's just good to get the paint down, get those marks down, and then leave it, then step back. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing, to let a start just be for a while. But I've learned, I think, through working with lots of different starts, that becomes a bit easier. And I've noticed in the chats that one or two people have said that, you know, they're stuck and that they've had difficulty for a while. And so I think that this is a great way of getting unstuck. And I think also if you challenge yourself by using different mark making tools, sizes and shapes, and again, you can get caught up in that, and that gives you a different, yet again, a different start. So if you are stuck, you know, you can just experiment, just play, and just have some fun.
That's right. And allow. This is all about allowing. And out of that allowing, you start to build confidence, and you start to move past that self-doubt and that inner criticism, which, you know, that inner landscape piece, if you know anything about my work, you know, I believe that's the holy grail, and ultimately getting to that place of trusting yourself enough to be able to take these risks, to be able to allow yourself, give yourself permission to open up those channels and not crystallize too early. And you actually learn to embrace what we call, you know, so-called ugly paintings, because I really believe that they are often the nascent embryonic forms of new art that's trying to be born, that's trying to come through, that's trying to emerge. And so we got to build up this repertoire of ability, open up that envelope to be able to tolerate that, and not only tolerate it, but embrace it and get excited and allow yourself to not know where that's going to go when you get into your studio. And when you get into that start, let yourself not know. I didn't know what was going to happen here. I don't know what's going to happen next. And that's where I want to be. I don't want to know already ahead of time what's going to happen in my art. Then that's boring. Okay, I want to take it somewhere new. I want to be surprised. So anyway, that's what I've got for you today. I'm going to look and see what's going on in the chat. Also, Lorraine, you can jump in there as well. Let me just see a few things, and then we'll wrap it up, and Lorraine will tell us a few things. So go ahead. Elizabeth Cassidy says, I just did an ugly painting, and now when I look at it, I see potential. I learned that from Nancy in her masterclass. Hey, Elizabeth. Yes, yes, yes. Very good. That sense of allowing, let it take you somewhere. See what happens. Anna says, thank you. Anka says, thank you. You're welcome. Hey, there's Jim Oliver. Ugly paintings. I have tons of them. Yeah, we're obsessed with ugly paintings over here because, and we say that and we laugh and everything, but really it is so powerful when you can finally get past your fear of ugly paintings and really realize the value in these pieces. It may not be the painting you hang on the wall, and it may not be, or it may be the one you hang on the wall, or it may not be the one that gets into the gallery, whatever. But it's really important in your ongoing evolution as an artist. And we have so many stories of artists who create these so-called ugly paintings, and then somebody comes in their studio and that's the one they're drawn to because it's alive and it's immediate.
I think also, Nancy, what sparks something as you're talking there is that, what's ugly today might not be ugly next week. Sometimes if we go into areas that we're not comfortable with and we've been experimenting or we've just been letting go, it can feel so unnatural that we really, really repel against it. But interestingly, when we come back to it maybe a week or so later, it starts to look not too bad, and it allows you then to move on from that part. So again, another good reason for creating ugly paintings.
That is brilliant, Lorraine. That's absolutely right. Had that experience so many times. And I think it's unfamiliar. And actually, that's why we want to get excited when you go to that place and you feel like it's ugly and and it's unfamiliar. And maybe you're feeling disappointed, but I submit to you, actually get excited, because just as Lorraine said, you may love that painting a year from now, or a day from now, or 10 years from now. And sometimes we have to catch up to how our paintings sometimes get ahead of us. They're out there in our future. You've had that experience of it's out there in the future, and then you got to catch up to this painting. It's nudging you along, it's pulling you, it's like whispering in your ear, like, let's go do this, let's experiment.
And I think it's really interesting. I know that I've tried to make an ugly painting. I've actually set out with that as a constraint, and it doesn't work. They just arrive. And I think that when they arrive, they arrive through experimentation. And I think maybe through doing something that you've not done before with a different brush or a different color. And it's uncomfortable. And I think it's more discomfort than ugly. I know, looking at the chat, people are just saying, it's not ugly, it just is. And I think that's true. It is just there. But live with it and see where it takes you.
That's right. And we say that, kind of facetiously, like ugly painting, you know what I mean? And it's, it's not, but it's just to say, we got to have some language around those ones that we're so uncomfortable with that we want to, initially reject them, and just really developing that sense of allowing around that. Okay. We're not going to love all our arts, clearly, but that doesn't make it invaluable. It doesn't make it less valuable. Okay. So it is a process, Suzanne said. Yeah, Marianne says it is not the outcome exactly that is important. It is how you feel doing this exercise and what you take away from it exactly in that process. Continually learning from your art, and it mirrors your life. Lorraine?
Yeah, I've just been reading something that Linda's put up. She's saying that she took a picture of her ugly painting. She thought she hated it, so she painted over it. I've done that so many times. And then maybe in a year's time, when I come back and I think, what happened to that painting? It had potential. Oh, yes, the gesso pot. So really, I would encourage people from my own point of view, try and resist the gesso. Live with that discomfort. Just live with it, even put it behind something else, but live with it and resist painting over it, because that's one of my biggest sins. And I've regretted so many times doing it. So Linda, well done. Put that gesso away.
Yeah. Yeah. Resist that urge to cover it up. Allow it to live as is. When you see something and you're just like, oh, I just really don't like this. What if you let it live? What if it's got a life of its own, so to speak, symbolically? And what if you let it be? Even if you put it, somewhere in a closet. And then I actually have a friend who did a painting years ago, and she just hated it. And she put it in a book, and she forgot about it for like 20 or 25 years. Then one day she was going through this book, and she saw a painting in there, and she thought, oh, wow, I love this. This is so tender. And then she looked up, I wonder who did this. She looked on the back, it was hers. See, it's like, you never know. So I think that's really true.
Just pulled out another one from Regina, who's just saying, how do I let go of needing to create a beautiful, pleasing image? Oh my goodness. If I had a penny or a dollar or a euro for every time that complete, compelling voice in your head says, but you've got to get to an end point. You've got to get to something that, you know, somebody will hang on their wall. No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, really shout back at that voice and just, you know, think of it all as starts. You know, they will get there in the end, but that voice is so damaging.
That's right. And it's noticing, I think, noticing your thoughts and your feelings when that comes up for you, like, oh, I've got to make this beautiful. It's, you know what I mean? You're putting that pressure on yourself for that outcome, you know, perhaps tending to crystallize too early, not allowing the, you know, so-called ugly paintings, whatever, you're really trying to go to that masterpiece. But so if you can notice that thought process and then say, well, hey, wait a minute, what if, this is kind of like mindfulness, you step back and you speak to that voice and say, well, what if I just go ahead and allow this to be? That's a big piece of why we are obsessed with talking about the ugly painting, and really giving it some breathing space and giving it some visibility, because I really believe that stretches that envelope to move past, I've got to make that gorgeous painting, past that pressure on perfectionism, and past that tendency to focus on the masterpiece.
Roberta makes an interesting point, Nancy. She says, I often see images and faces in my first swift drag of a pencil or tool. I have a desire to follow it and continue pulling it out, which I'm having fun with because I had no idea where this initial line was going. Is there a problem with simply following this initial line and amplifying it? No, if you're having fun, follow it. It's the creative impulse. It's the creative impulse that's coming out. It's when you get to a point where you think, I don't know where to go next. That's maybe when you leave it, move on to something else, and you can always come back to it. But if you've got that impulse, Roberta, follow it. Take it where it's taking you.
Yeah, absolutely. Run with that. Allow it. That is just a fabulous experience. I had that especially in watercolor. And I used to paint a lot of figures and horses. And I just actually love these images to come forth in, you know, whether it's faces or figures, and even still, I sometimes see very abstracted figures in my work, very abstracted. And I think it's just allow that. If you're loving that, go with it, run with it in a series, see where it takes you. I love that. Yeah, that's so good. Let's see. Karen says, feeling more hopeful, remembering things I've forgotten. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, really allowing, giving yourself permission. Let's see, anything else, Lorraine?
Yeah, Laura's saying that little voice that says, walk away for a bit, leave it for now, stop, is sometimes hard to hear. Yes, it is. But become addicted to tea or water. Go and get yourself a drink, which forced yourself to move away from it, even if it's just for a few seconds. That breathing space can make, you know, sometimes make all the difference. I mean, there's no hard and fast rules to all of this, but I think from what I've just been seeing of everybody, we all have these voices in our heads that actually try and get in the way of us doing things and having fun. But you know,
Yeah.
if we can resist it, sometimes incredible things happen.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Patricia says, love to explore, but get stuck on the why. I'd love to hear more about that. You know, yeah, I'm kind of like, why not? Well, you know what I mean? You know, but are you talking about, you know, why being an artist or creating is important to you? And I think that is a very good exploration and reflection to think about and write about that. We did a lot of that in the artist journey. And I think art journals are a great place to explore your why. You know, what are you drawn to? And also, what are the kind of patterns in your life of different things that are meaningful to you, and noticing that. So yeah, Elizabeth says, yeah, perfect answer. Why not? Yeah. Why not? And what if? What if I allow myself this experimentation and keeping it open, not racing to the finish and the perfect pieces.
Yeah,
I think, go ahead.
Nancy, what you just said, it really sparked something then. I think that sometimes is driven by that why question again, isn't it? You know, I have to be doing this for a reason. I have to be doing it to produce A, B, or C, or to have this end result, whatever that may be. But actually you don't. And I think if you're doing art for you and art from what's instinctive from within you, then maybe you don't.
That's right. That reminds me, it also sparked something for me too. Years ago, I was listening to David White, the poet. He's British, but he lives up off Whidbey Islands, off of Seattle, you know, out there in the islands up there. And he one time had this, I don't know if this came from a dream he had or whatever, but he wrote a poem. And the essence of it was, it really gets that kind of ego and soul, but basically said, you know, you're like, you're in a nightmare and you're like, it's a storm-strewn landscape with broken branches and all these things. And basically you're in there, my friend, quibbling. You're in there wrestling with yourself. I mean, I'm just kind of, this is kind of my meaning later, you know, like what meaning I took out of it. But you're in there wrestling with yourself. But you see, you know, your soul doesn't care if you get your paintings hung on a gallery wall. Your soul just wants you to paint. And so, you know, if you're grappling, you're fighting with parts of yourself, the part of you that somehow needs to please people or is looking for that external validation, or is that harsh inner critic, self-doubting and all these things. And if you're caught up in that, that makes it very hard. But if you really go deeper and realize that you are an artist, you are a composer, and you are the author of your art, and that you've come here to create your deepest, most meaningful art and to do the work you're meant to do in this life. And that's an ongoing, emerging, evolving thing. And you are continually evolving as well. And so when you really kind of come back to that and hold on to that, then you give yourself permission to go into the terra incognita, the unknown territory. Okay. This is what I write about, especially in that first book, The Artist's Journey, Bold Strokes to Spark Creativity. It's a very psychological, the why to, not the how to. Okay. So any of you have read that, you know, this is what I'm about. And I encourage you to do that. And you know, we're going, as you know, you probably know, we are enrolling artists. We've got new artists that are coming into the Artist's Journey Masterclass. And it's just amazing. I've been on the Facebook group recently, just meeting people. They're amazing. And really, this is about getting to that deepest art that you yearn to do. Okay, that sometimes it's elusive, but that elusive deepest art, and really show up and do the work you came here to do. And there's no risk in it, because, you know, the risk is that you don't do the work you came to do and you're frustrated. So Lorraine, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I think somebody once said to me, and then this is many, many years ago now, just turn up. Because if you actually turn up, things happen. It's the stopping yourself from turning up, I think, that you know, can be a big block. And I think, you know, having fun, doing the things that Nancy just been talking about, you know, activating the canvas with, you know, stream of consciousness mark making, just get started, have fun, enjoy the process, and then see where it takes you.
That's right. That's right. Wow. So I'm just seeing lots of wonderful comments in here. And, you know, as I said at the very beginning, we're gonna wrap it up. We're not gonna go on long here. We're coming to the end. I really appreciate you all being here, and I hope you join us in the masterclass. And I see some masterclass artists in here on this call, and we'd love for you to join us. We're going to wrap that up at midnight on Sunday, and it's a novel approach and an elegant kind of approach to the problem of not doing the work you're here to do, and the problem of really not quite liking where your art is going, and you want something else. You want to go deeper. You want to go into deep experimentation, and that's what we're about. And ultimately evolving your art. That's the adjacent possible. It's the art of the possible. And so that's what we do in there. It's all about the foundational concepts and principles from nature, from life, from our biology, from what our eyes and brain is drawn to all kinds of things, 0 to 1, poised instability, all these things that are deep and rich. And we bring in these concepts, even monocoque, which is a whole story in itself. It's that egg shape, that perfect shape that Johan Utzon from Denmark, the great architect, used as his underlying concept for the Sydney Opera House, one of the masterpieces of architecture in the 20th century. These are the kinds of things we're interested in, is these big concepts and bringing that in and letting that inform our art. So there's so much more. This is just a little tiny sample, but a very important one, because you've got to start 0 to 1, just start. So I hope that gives you inspiration and encouragement, and we'd love to have you. And so join us, let us know. And I want to thank you, Lorraine Willis, most wonderful friend and fabulous artist. Thank you for being here.
You are welcome. Great as ever. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you. And thank you, Hasna, for helping us. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic day. It's Saturday here. It's still morning, but I don't know where you are, but I hope you have a great day. Get in there and start, get going. We'd love to see you in the masterclass, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for being here. Bye.